Hafaday, and welcome to Data Points. Today we're going to interview Dominique Rose Felix-LG. She's the Vice President and Associate Broker in charge of Century 21 REMCO, and Chris Felix, and he's the President and the Broker in charge of Century 21 REMCO. And the reason why I wanted to talk to them is because Chris has been in the real estate industry for years. He's been in 40 plus, and he was here during the 70s and 80s through all the boom times and through all the hard times, quite frankly. And now he's handing his business over to his daughter, Dom, and it's an amazing transition to kind of talk about and hear, because you get these dynamic stories of Chris coming up in real estate and also Dom coming in and taking over the business, and how she learned sales and how she executes in the industry. And also both of them are really involved in the Guam Association of Realtors. And Chris, if you didn't know, was one of the pioneers that championed data integrity and pushing real data into the community and putting it in the hand of realtors to help them make informed decisions. So you're going to learn so much from this. If you value this content, please give us a like or subscribe or share and come to us. We have so much content. We have a newsletter, and check us out on Instagram and also our YouTube and podcast channels. And you can also catch us on our website, www.pinpointguam.com. We hope to see you out there. We hope to see you transacting. If you need help, come see us. Hafaday, welcome to Data Points. We are here with our guest, Christopher Felix, who is the president of Century 21 REMCO, and Dominique Rose Felix-LG, and she's the vice president and associate broker in charge of Century 21 REMCO. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
So this is a really great get for me, because Chris Felix is like the original gangster of like real estate on Guam, right? And so I really wanted to get his insight to tell us stories about the market. So that's where we're going to start. And then I also want to hear about you, Dominique, and kind of your role and how you're kind of transitioning into the business, or have transitioned into the business as well. But first, I always like to start, like when I meet one of my superheroes, I like to start with their origin story, right? So can you tell me, what drew you into real estate and kind of what it was like in the 70s, 80s, like the boom time in Guam?
Love to. I got here 72. No need to get to the reasons why, but I came to Guam kind of cold. I was looking for a job, and I found out that you didn't need any experience for real estate. And so I got my license in 72 and started selling real estate. A year later, they made testing mandatory, so I snuck in under the wire. But I had to eventually, they made me take tests. So it was the only thing I could do real quickly. I had a fiance, wanted to get her to Guam, and I was horny, so let's just go. So I got a job selling real estate, and I've absolutely loved it. It was the perfect job for me. I couldn't believe it. I lucked into this whole thing. So from 72 to now, I've done just what I've wanted to do. Everything in my life has been just really great. How are things in the 70s? The 70s were a little slow, actually, in the beginning. I don't know if those long timers, they had oil crisis then.
Okay.
They had lines around them. So not too many people were buying. So it was a perfect time to learn. And so I hit the books because there were a few old timers, Klaus Fritz and Mike Flaherty, Jeff Bouchard, some of the old timers who taught me.
Yes.
They were kind of my mentors. But it was a great time to learn because I had nothing much to do. I'd sit there and man the floor and just read.
Did Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac exist in the 70s?
Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge. Do you know
FHA was around.
what was the interest rate in the 70s? Do you remember?
7s.
7%.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Most of my life was 7s until you get to the 80s. Then it shot up to 18.
Okay.
And then it went back down.
Where do people live? Subdivisions, tract homes?
Yeah. Well, we were in the 70s. They were just finishing up Barragata Heights, Hyundai, Santa Rita. Those were just being finished and sold. Barragata Heights was selling for $94,000.
Right?
The view ones. I mean, it's just amazing. It was a great time. I mean, people were. It was great to sell. People were as dumb as I was, so they thought I knew what I was doing. It was really a great time to learn and to sell. then the 80s hit, and that's the gold years. Actually, the first couple years in the 80s were medium. But then 85 to 90 was the absolute boom time. It'll never happen again.
Okay.
But if you could possibly list the property, it would sell that day.
Right.
We've been involved with somebody buying and selling property 2 or 3 times within a week, the same property, just buy and sell, buy, sell. It was just insane. How much money was spent here? In the 1988-89, I had the #1 agent for Century 21 in the world.
Oh my gosh.
For our little island, that's how much we were
That is
selling.
amazing.
It is absolutely amazing. Ching Laksamana. She's a good friend, and God bless her, rest her soul. But Guam was the 4th largest investment of Japanese investors for those 2 years. It was like LA was first, you know, and New York was second, and somewhere else was third. We were fourth. Can you imagine that? I mean, that amount of money, you know, hundreds of millions plopping down here.
Was it really the hundreds of millions like that where we're competitive with like the New York market, like all those major metropolitan markets?
As far as the dollar investments, we were #4 in the United States.
That is
At that
nuts.
time.
It is, you know, these numbers were just phenomenal. And we were affiliated with Ito, which owned the Century 21 franchise in Japan.
Okay.
So we were just passing stuff back and forth. The #2 agent was an agent of Ito in Japan, was the #2 agent in the world. So it was just wild. The 80s were wild, and then the 90s were the crash, you know.
All right. Well, so I'm so interested in all the names that you said, Hyundai, you know, the Nimitz Estates, like all these Barragata Heights, all these developments that were coming in, and the corporations that did them. Talk to me about the early origins that you understand in development on Guam. Like how do properties get built here?
Well, the first group I got involved was Kaiser for like Baza Gardens. They were just finishing up. But it was a group called Oceanic Development, which was a sister company of Kaiser.
Okay.
Kaiser, Liguan, and Kaiser was already built, but Baza was just coming on the market. And working with those guys, I mean, they bought huge tracts, right? They would walk in and just plop money down.
Why were they here?
To develop housing.
So they're an outside interest that just came to Guam and said, "Oh, we're going to build housing."
Yeah, and I think Kaiser was pretty much the only U.S. Western firm.
Wow.
Large Western that did a large development, and Kaiser was selling at $16,000 a unit.
And these were precast.
Yeah, they were all tilt up precast, 3-inch concrete with the louvers, and you hate them now, but you loved them back then, man. They were cheap and good. They were great.
Well,
so that was the first. Then we will start working with Taiwan groups. Those are the Hyundai. That was Korea and Taiwan developers.
Interesting.
And it was a lot. It was a real lot of fun. Like you say, they thought I knew what I was doing, so they respected me. I respected them. And you know, if a Japanese developer walked in, if he didn't have 5 people with him, it's not going to go anywhere.
Okay.
He had to have his vice president, his board of his board members, his CPA, and a secretary taking note. He had to have 5 people with him, or it just wasn't. It was fake. You know?
It's like that meme where they have like the billionaire and the millionaire, and like the number of people following.
Yeah, you got to have the staff. He had his entourage, and he'd come in, the president, and make the decision and say buy it, and boom, we cut the deal.
That's awesome. And, like just being in the real estate industry now, that really, understanding the past really helps to understand the perspective and where we're going and where it can be and where it's been. Right?
One of my good friends, Sandy Gold, you know her.
Yeah.
Sandy looked at me one day and says, "Chris, I've never had a boom." She started in the 90s, and I never realized that,
Hug her. Give you a hug, Sandy.
Poor Sandy, you've had to work all your life. I didn't. I just kind of floated through most of it,
As we talk through this, we're going to flash her face, like, right?
She's one of the best.
She is. So shout out to Sandy. But so with all those exciting things and all that money coming through, what was the most exciting one? What was the one that kind of sticks, Chris?
Back then or now or?
Well, just, yeah, back then.
True.
I would say, like, when you're coming up, this is your, so we're interested in your formative story. So tell me, because, like, I know Cool Hand Chris, right? Cool Hand Luke here. But I don't know young Chris.
I was a 19, 20-year-old. And I think one of the most exciting times way back then at my first year of selling was working with Baza, this group, the Kaiser group. And somebody walked into my office and had like 200 acres right next to Baza.
Okay.
And so, my broker said, well, they're doing Baza. They're not going to be interested. I walked into their Oceanics office and I dumped it on them.
Oh, really?
And they got really excited. We went back and my broker hated me. He hated me. He said, well, that was mine. I said, no, it wasn't, boss. We never closed the deal, but it was working with them.
Okay.
How they thought, how they operated, their cost factoring.
This is Oceanic.
This is Oceanic Development. Yeah, that was a division of Kaiser.
So you plopped it on their desk and you effectively learned development from them.
Basically,
they went back and forth and they changed.
Working with them because they would ask me questions. I have no idea what the question was. I go read and find out,
right? Yeah.
And then give them an answer.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool because that's some of the things that I think you should do in the industry now, right? Like one of the things I did is I hung around a construction site and I just asking like the foreman, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you pouring this? And then I asked the developer, can I just hang out here and just show me the different phases, right? Because you got to know.
That's it.
You got to know. Nuts and bolts, right? So Dom, your turn, right? So tell me what it was like growing up in a family that's like so deeply tied to real estate. You must never shut up.
No, I didn't. My father, but a lot of people know my mother as well, and she was a socialite.
Okay.
She was, and they were the best team, and it was really cool because at a really young age, my parents taught us how to take care of our home and our investment. They both were very stellar children growing up. They were academic and they were athletic and they were just all around just a good students of the world, They gave back. And so my parents really instilled taking care of what we own from a very early young age, and also financial understanding, understanding net versus gross and expense. Like we understood that. We did a lot of math. My dad was a math protege growing up and still is. He's a calculator. He's a walking calculator. My mother is a controller. She taught her
in every way possible.
Yeah, exactly. At home and at work. My mother was the controller.
She was the best.
Yeah, and so property management, from our home to our investments, we cleaned the properties that my parents owned was not managed by the company, but by them and us. We'd come in and clean after every move out, before every move in. The plumbing was done by my dad, and I'd pick up the cockroaches that were laying on the floor. We'd sweep them out. My sister would Windex the windows, and they just really instilled in us really good values when it came to, they just loved what they did. And they figured out, I discovered the Ikigai method of taking what you're good at, what you love, what you're passionate about, how you can help. And so they've always lived that way. And it was really fun to see, but also I had to be very understanding as a child because back then, the boomers and even till now, they're workaholics. And their life was their marriage, their marriage, the kids, and the business. And that was their life. And they fully committed to all of that. And so that required, my parents couldn't come to school events that happened during the workday. But my parents were always there at all the extracurriculars, right? But they traveled a lot. They had to go for NAR conferences twice a year minimum. And as this guy kept leading and growing, he had to go to more leadership things. And even to a point where it was every year on my sister's birthday, they were gone for NXT in November.
Right.
And they weren't here for most of her birthdays. So there was a lot of understanding that we had to do, and also just gratitude and love that came from our family of when we were present, and they were very, very present. Chris, in this sense, Dad had to help me a lot through school. School didn't come easy for me. I have really bad short-term memory, and I struggled with getting good grades, and my sister has a photographic memory. So there was a lot of commitment to what they did, and they were really good at balancing it.
And when I say your dad couldn't shut up. I'm talking about like me at home. Like I'm talking about real estate all the time. Like it's like, Dad, I don't want to learn anymore.
The work was definitely brought home. Mom had a lot of like late nights. Like she was a controller, so tax season and like all-nighters. Like she would, I recall a lot of that. And so they were workaholics, but they worked really hard to give us what they never had, and that was the boomers' goals. That's their American dream, is to have what they didn't have growing up, to give their kids what they didn't have growing up.
Right. And so with that, I would say, when was the place where you decided you wanted to be in the business?
I was about 25 years old when I decided I want to join the family business. Growing up, I was bullied a lot for being who I am, and it happened when I was in my high school years. So it was by people who didn't know me growing up. And, they'd say things like, oh, you can just take over the family business, and why are you going to college? You don't need to do that. Like my parents didn't graduate from college, and they got all three of their kids through college. And though both my sisters were very smart people, I made an effort to try to graduate 1 quarter early so that I can save my parents money and make them proud somehow, because school was really hard. Like I was a C student in college, and it wasn't until I found my way into economics and then communications as a minor that I really started to feel, okay, this is great. And then, because I was an electrical engineering major at first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So with a dance minor, it was insane. And then I switched to econ and comm. But I got recruited to be a headhunter. And that was sales. That was cutthroat sales. It's like real estate for people, but there's no agency.
Right.
And it was intense, and it was really fun. And I did it in the Silicon Valley for Google, Facebook, Apple, you name it, like Siri, all of the languages. I recruited tons of people to do voices and languages for Siri. And It was a lot of fun. And then I got tired of it because it was really hard. A lot of deals fell through at the end where I was working 60, 70 hours a week, happy houring 3 days a week, and it just got so draining that I took a pay cut and decided to join one of the world's largest property management firms is Jones Lang LaSalle. And I started as a property assistant and from the bottom. And in 6 months, I grew to be the director's like right hand when it came to the creative stuff. And then from there, I was like, I think I'm going home soon. I don't know when. I actually mullered twice. I was supposed to move home in 2017, didn't. 2018, sold my car, then didn't, and then moved home in 2019. So it took a while too for me to do that.
I just want to tell you, your dad was bragging about you even then. I remember specifically he mentioned when you started working for that company. So so good for you. So there's that, right? So talk to me about the internal dynamics there, right? Because it's like, you're daddy's little girl, right? And so to see you as a fully formed professional is, I'm sure, maybe something that doesn't happen all the time.
We just got into a fight about this weekend.
We're always fighting.
We're always bickering. It's so funny.
With total love for each other.
Yeah.
And we had a big fight the other night, and then we came running to each other and apologized. But she's a millennial, and I'm the old timer, and we clash. Her process is different than mine, and it's hard for me sometimes to let go of things and let her take the reign. And it's sometimes she doesn't understand what I'm trying to do and where I'm trying to get. So we're just different. We're raised so differently, and our beliefs are about the same. But it's really interesting to have this generation, this big gap. It is a huge gap, millennial to what I am, and so it's a lot of getting used to, a lot of respect for each other. I really have to respect her in order to, listen to her sometimes when I don't want to. She's wrong, and I know she is. But.
Well, so like my real estate journey has always been kind of like your family is the last to trust you because they see you in that way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, so finally when other people start trusting you, you're like, okay, maybe you know what you're doing.
Maybe you know.
Yeah.
No, really, I had a lot of faith in her. But we went through a very bad time. Well, my wife, the love of my life, and always was and always will be, got sick, and Nikki had to take over the company.
During COVID.
Right.
During COVID, and for 6 months, she and I were in LA while she went through chemo and therapy. which didn't work out, and she came back and passed here in Guam. That really brought us together. She had to run the company, and I had to let go.
Right.
I had to focus on what I had to focus on, and she had. So that brought us a lot, again, more respect for each other, I think. When she spoke, I learned to listen better, a little bit better, not always.
Yeah.
Well, it's the letting go that's hard, right? Because fundamentally, I think you always feel that I built this, I know what's right.
Yeah, it's mine.
Yep.
You don't understand. My focus is here.
Yeah.
And Dominique's trying to tell me, no, Dad, my focus is here. And it takes
Micro
time.
and macro.
Yeah, it really
Really
is.
both.
It really, you're right.
Yeah.
You hit it exactly.
Well, I mean, I hit it exactly because I hear a lot of generational stories where my parents won't let me do what I want.
No, and I do want to dive into that a little bit because it does take a lot of mutual love and respect and trust. That's the biggest thing is trust. And we had no choice. The world and God's plan and whatever it was. I was just so fortunate that I got my broker's license when I did, which was that July. And when my mom got sick was August, and she left Island 2 weeks later. And it was August 2020, like 5 months after COVID had just begun, and pivoting throughout the next few years. So I've technically from 2020, August 2020 to, I want to say more so like 2023, 24, because after death, you have to handle things for about a year or two. And there was a lot going on in our personal lives too. So, and this guy is semi-retired too. There's balance, there's transition, and you have to really empathize with the other person. We are partners, and there are times that we get into not even arguments, I want to say heated discussions of us just being so passionate about the business that as long as we have that mutual respect for one another, we'll get to the bottom of it. And you can't have this generational transition during this next 5 years, the great resignation of 2030 of the largest generational wealth transfer from the boomers to the millennials. And you can't have that unless you start building now the trust
For sure.
and the mutual respect. And it's absolutely vital. Otherwise, the legacy may not thrive and continue to be alive. So, yeah.
Chris, so relationships matter.
Oh, yeah.
And so just in my study of the real estate industry locally and just how developments get done, it's all partnerships. It's all relationships. And so can you tell me about just the history of development on Guam and the fabric that kind of weaves us all together and how you get deals done?
You get deals done by, number one, building some trust with your client. I mean, that's, and you get deals done by doing what they want you to do, not what you think they should do. And the time will come when you say that maybe are you sure this is what you want? But to clarify points, but, Guam is so unique. You're dealing with real high-end people. The people I've dealt with, Ken Jones, Eddie Calvo, these guys, they're gods. They made Guam what it is. And I had the fortune of dealing with them and becoming their friend and working their real estate for them, and such honor of doing that. But it's because Ken trusted me, and I trusted Ken. If you got real quick story, Ken calls me and says, "Chris, sell again your shopping center." And he lists it for me for $10 million. This is way back in the 80s. And I send it off to a group in Arizona. I get an offer.
Wow.
And I come back, I said, "Ken, I got an offer of $9.5 million and it looks good, and no. And Ken goes, "Chris, I didn't think you could sell it." And I told you to sell it for $10 million because I really wanted to sell it to Henry C., the owner of Shoe Mart in the Philippines, SM, who's my best friend. But I was using your number, that $10 million, as a number for him to buy from me. And I said, "Oh, shoot." I said, "Okay, Ken, that's Ken. You're cool. Thank you for being honest." And he goes, "Chris, what was the commission?" And I said, "It was 5%. He said, "What would have been your cut?" And I said, 2.5%. He sat down and wrote me a personal check for $250,000.
Right.
Because he said, "Chris, without you, I couldn't have sold it to somebody else." Right. That's the kind of relationships that we had back then. There was trust. listings were in writing and things. Writing was important, but the handshake was really it in the 80s. It kept you going.
Right, but so the thing that resonated the most to me about what you just said is somebody valued your professional opinion and was willing to pay you for it, right? And they valued it to the point up to that number where they already had a deal done, but they valued it. And so Dom, like the Guam Association of Realtors is kind of in the same, NAR. They're in that same position where they're trying to support their value, right? So that's kind of, and that's really where it is take care of your professionals. If you want to be like great at real estate, if you want to be a great real estate investor, take care of the people who bring you ideas, pay them.
Yeah, and here's the thing. How we do business has been the same from fruition. Actually, we are not going through a new thing. We're going back to how things were done, just with more contracts and more transparency. Like you said, writing and contracts back then, they were barely existent. They were an IOU paper. There was notaries weren't required for certain documents back then. And there is a lot of trust, and there should still be that amount of trust till this day because we have the documents to hold us accountable to that. Back then, there were no contracts to hold them accountable to it. And you either made it or you didn't.
Right, and your reputation in such a small place is very important, right?
Yeah.
But also your reputation as a developer and investor. When you don't take care of the people who bring you ideas and bring you value, you have to do that. And so tell me about a time where an unlikely relationship kind of led through like a breakthrough for you, like someone you never expected brought you something and just like, wow.
Tangeeson. As you go down to Tangeeson power plant, the old Tangeeson power plant, and you park your car and you walk to Halone, it's called the
Shark's Hole.
Shark's Hole and pond.
Yeah,
the pond
Lost
there.
Pond, right?
Last one.
All that land.
Okay.
Is about, I'd say about 260 acres of land. The San Nicolas family listed it with us.
Okay.
And, I made a phone call to a close friend who represents a Taiwan group.
Okay.
And I took him out there, and we just walked down the beach. By the time we got back, the deal was done.
Wow.
It's just that, it was just a magic. Of course I planned sunset. I had to do that. So it was 6 o'clock, sunset, and the sun setting, and there was this shape like a Palau Island on this property, and the sun was setting around that, and he goes, Chris, how much? And I said, $25 million, and they're not going to give. Yeah. And 3 weeks later, we had the offer on the table, and the court approved it and closed it in 2 months, I think it was.
Wow.
That's amazing.
It's crazy stuff. Same thing with like Ken. I called him. I get a call from Japan one day. Where Ken's house used to be, from Oka Towers, where those 3 buildings are now.
The summer towers.
All that land.
Sure.
I get a call and from Japan. This is at the collapse.
Okay.
And the Japan says, "What's it worth?" And I said, "Ooh, it's worth about $4 million." Mm-hmm. And they said, "Boy, we paid $25 million for it, my company, but let me call you back." They called back 2 days later and, said, "Okay, sell it." So I pick up the phone, and they bought it from Ken Jones.
Oh, okay.
So I pick up the phone, I said, "Ken, you want your land back?" And he says, "Well, what do they want?" And knowing Ken, I said, "They want $5 million." He said, "Offer them 4. Another deal we closed in 3 weeks. These are the things that happen, and it's personality. It's Ken and me.
You got to know your customer.
You know your customer and the reputation from Tokyo Bank. Somehow they had my name, and it was that phone call that led to it. Just
And so that circles back relationships, right? We're so
always relationships.
No, but we're so much on social media and stuff, but really it's the face-to-face, right? Yeah. In the 70s and 80s, you were just going, meeting people, engaging, having dinners, engaging, building, right?
Just trying to get to know them and get them to. The big thing is trust and be truthful. Tell the truth. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times I've told people, don't sell your land right now.
Yeah.
Don't sell it.
It's not a good time to sell.
You're asking somebody come in and want to sell a Kaiser house for $35,000. It was worth $135,000.
Right.
Anyone else would have grabbed it. And you got to tell them, no, it's worth 135. Don't sell it, Yeah. Or now's the time to buy. Be honest, You may lose the sale now, but what you gain in the next 5-10 years,
building that relationship
phenomenal.
with that client and that customer, and helping them believe that you're doing everything you can do to get the deal done.
Yeah, we don't have the volume to turn here, so.
Well, like you said, with technology,
Sometimes
right?
it's
different now,
So talk to me about your experience in terms of building relationships in the digital age, and kind of like, you're with the oldest school guy in terms of real estate and the most successful in terms of those practices.
Mm-hmm.
How do you reconcile that with what you know in terms of leveraging technology and all the other stuff?
So first and foremost, you learn the old school way. You start from the ground up. You door knock, you cold call, you do everything you can, but you also find a balance, right? You can only do so much of that. So when I really started selling in 2019 when I moved home, I liked going to bars. I liked drinking. So I went to the bars that I knew I can get the highest paying tenants. And I went in at 5:00, introduced myself to the bar manager or the owner, whoever was there, asked them if I can grab a drink, and drop my business cards everywhere. And they said, you need to spend $30. I said, shoot, what do you want to drink? And so I dropped all my business cards, and I think I got an award in 2020. I received it from 2021, Century 21 in 2021.
I gotcha. I'm with you, Dom.
And it was for the highest lease units, like in Century 21 for all the franchise in Guam. And it's because I did all of these leasings, and it was so fast. I think I sold my first property closed after a year of being in, because the leasing market was so fire. Mm-hmm. It was so fast during that late 10s. And I made a good amount of money that year. Not a lot, but I made a good amount of money and was very proud of that. And but now today, what I truly believe, it's not face-to-face, it's face to audience. Okay. And if you're not utilizing, if you are not pivoting, if you're not growing with technology and understanding what the world is now, and you're just not learning, right? You're just like, nope, you're being stubborn, you're not gonna learn it. If you're new and you're not learning how to start from scratch, then developing what you do best and how you do it best, then what are you doing in this business? Fair. Why are you here to sell if you're not ready to sell? Mm-hmm. You're not doing the work to sell.
That's super creative, but not hard to execute, right? You just have to be brave enough to walk in the room, have the conversation, and ask for the business. Yeah. And that never happens. You put it out on social media,
working
please call me,
is
right? But
not in a lot of people's vocabularies.
Fair.
It's like, let's be real. Working smart work hard and work smart, but there's a balance, but people today in my gen and the next gen don't like to work hard. They don't like to lose sleep a little bit. Or in school, we had all-nighters sometimes where we studied to get by. I did, because school was really hard for me.
And so I guess the differentiator is resilience and work ethic, right? In a lot of ways, and you just got to learn that one way or the other. But if you have that, then effectively, you beat like 60 to 70% of your competition in that.
And taking pride in your work,
But also your involvement in organizations. You become very active.
Yeah, we believe
in chamber and women's chamber.
But you did too. Like you and Mom were both philanthropists in our
to watch you do it's amazing, your involvement.
If you give, we truly believe this. Like our family is in this moral, like our values and morals point to servicing. Like we serve, and what we give, we get back in tenfold, and we believe it. Whether it's we give it, or it's taken from us, or we're deceived from it, or whatever we don't have anymore, we get back because we just keep giving. You have to give your time in order to build trust and referrals and clientele.
And so tell me about that. Let's talk about relationships and cultivating trust, navigating professional landscapes, and then also imagining partnerships, right? So tell me what you're doing, like, in that aspect in the Good Collective. Yeah.
This year is my year of learning and unlearning. So I'm diving into courses and just books and audiobooks and podcasts. That's what I'm listening to these days. I'm not listening to music very much unless it's with my daughter, but it's, you got to learn. Right. There's a lot of that too. But you got to do the homework. You got to ask Google the right questions. Like there's AI now, and there's a lot of information we can get at the tip of our fingers that you guys didn't. You couldn't back in the day. I mean, the Dewey Decimal System. Let's be real. This guy. I mean, did we not learn the Dewey Decimal System in our grade school years?
I knew the
right?
Dewey Decimal. I didn't invent it, Dom.
So we didn't have you guys didn't have the World Wide Web. I didn't have the World Wide Web until I was 10. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you guys were adults and you had to pivot with email and dial-up, and so you have to pivot again with AI and technology and all that stuff.
You're in my generation.
No, he's with me. I claim Ryan Mummert in the millennials.
No, but I guess like I was born in 77, so like we're supposed to straddle because like we were coming into like the digital, you know, like Atari and all that stuff, right, in the
X
80s. So I understand to a degree, but I'm not all the way there with you in the millennial side.
You have a podcast, Ryan. Let's just be real.
I just like to talk.
Me too.
So one of the things I wanted to do before we started is I just wanted to shout out your dad, right, for having the vision to push data integrity. He pioneered the effort early on in the partnership with the Guam Association of Realtors and Pinpoint to develop our product, Real Facts, so realtors could have accurate data to present to the public in service to their goal of integrity. So thank you so much for that. And the whole association and membership should quite frankly thank you, because that has improved their capacity. Like that story that you told in terms of just emailing or sending a letter to some guy in Arizona that offered to buy. That's how I started leveraging data. I went to land management. I looked up a property address or a legal description. I found the mailing address. I sent a postcard, and I sold the property.
Right.
Postcard in, postcard out. It was the best day of my life. I was like,
I've done that too.
$1.59, right, is the best. Yeah. The lady called me. She was so excited that I reached out to her, and a light bulb went off. And I was like, you know, if I did this 100 times, right, it'll happen.
That's cold mail right there, man.
Exactly. So that's what I'm doing now. It's like we built this tool and we're saying everybody leverage this data, use it for your advantage, use it for prospecting, but use it to bring integrity to the industry, communicate that. And one of the things that we're talking to the government about is, hey, give us your data. Let us be the pathway in terms of let us explain and help people understand, and let's refer them to professionals who can help them receive the right answers. And so that is what your dad is about. That's what Pinpoint is about. And that's why we're having these discussions about real estate. So tell me about that. Why did you think, when it first started, why did you think it was essential to...
I went absolutely crazy when you laid that out. When you laid out not only what it was, but what it could be, which is what it is today. And God knows what it's going to be tomorrow. But I just went crazy. I mean, we had to have it, and we had to own it. It had to be a part of GAR, or we're totally useless.
Yeah, what are we doing?
We need the basic information. We need lot numbers, owners. We need zonings. We need documents backup. We need topos if we can get it. We needed it. How could we move any more forward than where we were? Because, you couldn't really trust everything the government said at times. They said there's water there, but there may not be.
Right.
And this data is just, knowledge is everything. If you know what you're talking about, how could they refute you? How could you're the winner? That's the way I always looked at it. So when you laid it out, I went absolutely crazy, and I just shoved it down as many throats.
You did.
And it took how long? How many years did it take for that to finally happen? For us to have a platform?
Not too long. I think a year or two.
Well, so we had a baseline product ready, but what we didn't have is we didn't have the real estate records underneath. Right. The initial product had the parcel layers, so we could see the property boundaries, but we couldn't see who owned it. Now, what we've done over like a 5-year effort is we digitized all those documents, and now they're searchable. And so now what you can do is you can search for property owners en masse, right? We can find people by certain amenities. We can verify zoning. And so, but we couldn't have done that without partnership with stakeholders.
But what you originally offered was
great in itself.
Everything we could ever ask for at that time.
Right.
Now you've moved forward, we've moved forward, and it's wonderful. What a great relationship it became.
And it's so vital that it is what it is today because of how much real property has disappeared as far as being able to locate the owner and if they're still alive. I've had to do extensive research. I have searched for obituaries for people because of I've done research and I've given the owners of the family trust or not trust, the probate that's going on, finding the case that's open for that family, for those properties, for a buyer. Like I've done that twice now for people, and it's crazy if we didn't have the technology.
And so what's cool too is know your market. So now with that, you can pull comps, right? You can see what's closing. You can see who's closing what. You can see who are the most prolific cash buyers.
Stats.
You can see what the mortgage volume is. And so in knowing that, how does your generation operate, right? Because what you see, there was a time where realtors were gatekeepers in a sense, right? You have all the information, but now the information is so widely disseminated, and it's very easy for people to get to market with social media now.
Yeah.
So how do you operate in that landscape?
If you were to ask me this a year ago, my answer wouldn't be the same today because last year I spent about 2.5 months filtering through my social media to only give me what I want to see that will help me be the person that I want to be by the end of this year. And there's just so much information that you have to understand that you will be fed false information. That's the internet. Like half of what you know isn't true. And that is scientifically fact based off of Harvard business journals and doctors and PhDs saying this now. And you have to be able to do enough research because information floods at you. You don't work as hard as you used to make sure that the answer is correct. So you got to know how to determine and tell your clients and customers what type of market we are in. You have to also give them the numbers to prove that. Why is that? You have to give them the source. Oh, was that from Yahoo Finance? Where did you get that? Was it from Wikipedia? Where did you get this information? They want to know sources, and that's how you do papers. And so when I produce data to my clients and customers, I not only do a CMA, but I do my own run of a quick search on MLS to make sure it is accurate because sometimes technology doesn't work the same or there's a glitch or for whatever reason. I just double check my work before I send it out. When I produce information on the market, I provide definitions, numbers, screenshots of what the numbers are in the MLS and prove it to them versus just saying, oh, it's a buyer's market because of this. I give them the reason and they trust me in that. And I do it all in writing in the initial email. You can't just say, I'm the best realtor out there for you. You got to give them a reason to understand why.
Right. I agree with that 100%. And that's how you show your value. And that's where, people run to pay you because it's like, I'm illustrating the value. I'm doing the work. I'm not just putting it on some website and waiting for everything. I'm not an order taker.
Yeah.
I'm a business originator. And that's kind of the differentiation, I think, between those who stay and those who leave. Yeah.
And that's what's happening now. There's a big filter happening with the change and who's going to stay and work to figure it out and who's going to say it's not for me.
Yeah,
throw in the towel,
There was a book called Shift in 2008, and that's kind of like a similar time. Right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've always championed and I've always been able to do, and one of the things that's made me successful is knowing about who to call when I have a problem, right? And so for you, we talked about that working with professionals. Talk to me about that. Tell me how that interplays with your dynamic and how you deal with data and information.
Well, this guy's my number one go-to because he's a walking calculator.
Okay.
And he has impeccable short-term memory, and so I really lean on him. But he also required that I obtain multiple mentors in this industry, smart ones that he's mentored, and he's given me recommendations. And he says, get to know them, introduce yourself, call them if you haven't met them yet, and see if they're the right fit for you. And I've built my relationships with, I think I have maybe 4 or 5 solid I can call. If one doesn't pick up, I can go down the line until one of them picks up and get advice before I move forward with anything in my business that I am uncertain of or feel not even a problem before I get to that problem or if there is something that can be done. The whole point of being a realtor is that we are the professionals in real property. If we don't know the answer, you better say you don't know the answer and you're going to get back to them and make your calls. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is a show, right? We loved that show growing up. You know, you have the people that you can call, you have the poll. Like there's 3 things, these lifelines so that you can make that $1 million. That's how you need to work your business.
I agree 100%. And then just through that interplay, if you have good professionals working with you, you get that index and that inventory of good answers, right? And the recall, and then also it becomes more instinctive when you hear things that don't sound true,
right?
Don't click, and then that repetition of experience is how you build your base. So,
and everyone does business differently. I mean, PBs aren't all going to make the same call, but they're going to have their perspectives and they're going to have their reasons. But you got to be able to know when to own that, whatever you decide, or make your decision based off of those advices as well.
So, okay, talk to me about legacy, Chris. Right?
Legacy,
right? Legacy. Let's see. Looking forward, right? What legacy do you hope to leave behind for Guam's real estate industry?
Oh, you know how loyal I am to GAR. I'm a GAR fanatic, the Guam Association of Realtors. I'm involved in every way I can, in sometimes more than I should, I guess. But I truly believe in an organization of professionals. Okay. I truly believe that we need to come together as a group of professionals and work together and try to live together. And that's the legacy I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave with these new generation, like Anthony, Godwin, and I, and we have what we had and we have. Mm-hmm. Some of the old timers we're called now, we had a respect for each other.
There you go.
You're not going to take me. Mm-hmm. You're not going to cut me out of a deal. I'm not going to cut you out of a deal. I get a phone call and they mention Sandy. I'm going to say, go back to Sandy.
Right.
You can't, you're going to get any better than that, rather than try to take it and pocket it. Mm-hmm. That's what we believed in.
Right.
And that's really what I want to leave. Okay. Whether it's going to last or not, I don't know. Even in my generation, there was a lot of greed. There was there's backstabbing and throat cutting. But, you stand, you swallow it, and you move on. You don't let what someone else will do affect you and your ethics and what you know is right. Don't let somebody change you, because it's wrong. You are what you are. Don't let a bum or a crook make you a crook because they cheated you out of a deal. I've been burned out of so many deals. It's ridiculous. And so have you. Mm-hmm. You trusted, and then you get the phone call from another agent with the offer around your back. That's life.
Yeah,
we just happened to us.
And let them, right?
You let them do it. But don't let them change you and your ethics, the way you live your lifestyle. And that flows out. It does. Mm-hmm. Others see it, and they're going to follow. That's the legacy I want to leave.
Right on. So, what advice would you give to new professionals about how to understand and respect kind of like the culture that you've built up into this is Guam's real estate culture, right? Mm-hmm.
Do what's right. We have our code of ethics, but that's really nothing compared to what's inside. Just do what you know is right and move on. That's all I can tell you is whether it's right or wrong. You get that feeling inside of you. I shouldn't have said that.
And he means moral compass, like not knowledge and education. He's talking about moral compass, right?
Exactly.
That's what he's referring to. And as long as you do that, everything else.
You have the knowledge. You know how to do it. Now, are you going to do it right?
Well, I would say, like in a commission business, in an entrepreneur state, the temptation is just
easy.
It's just so easy just to say what you need to say to get to the next thing.
And pretending like you know what you're talking about, but you don't. It's like, what's wrong when somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer to say, I'm not sure. Let me get back to you on that. Like, what is wrong with that? Versus fear. Telling somebody else. And it's the fear of them knowing that you don't know what you don't know versus like, I don't know what I don't know. And that's how you should, it's a reframe of the mindset. And it's to look into people's eyes with integrity and honesty and respect. And respect requires honesty and kindness and love and respect.
I've been selling dirt for 51 years.
I love it.
And I would not be here still selling dirt if I didn't play it straight. I made enemies. I have people that don't like me. I have people that thinks I cheated them, and I'm telling them I did not. I never, in my life that I can remember, cut a deal I shouldn't have. You know, I've warned you not to do it. You went and did it. That's your problem, not mine.
All right. That's great. So we talked about legacy, but let's talk about Guam Association of Realtors, right? What do you think it's going to look like in the next 10 years?
What I'd like it to look like and what I think it was going to look like are two different things.
Okay.
I would like it to get a little stronger. I don't think we need to grow membership. I think we're over membered. 600 members on an island of 150,000 is a little kill, but I'd like it to become stronger internally and maybe shrink a little and get more involvement is what I would like. I don't see that happening though. There's 10, just like real estate, salespeople, there's 10 that move and shake. There's 20 that kind of get a living from it. And then there's 50 that make one deal a year and that's it, you know? And that's what GAR is kind of. You get the people who are really active and care and they get involved and they're the leadership. You know, I purposely have stayed out of leadership. I was president 8 times. Nine times I've been president for state president. And then I gave up. I said, we got to make room, you know. You got to step down and make room. And so I try to stay out of chairman of committees. I like to be members of committees and let someone else try to grow their wings a little and get involved. But I don't see that happening as much as I would like it to.
What about you, Dom?
Yeah, I dream, again, in the next 10 years for it to be really strong. And I see the work is being done right now as we speak, and it's really exciting stuff that's happening. Just like NAR went through a transition last year with the settlement with the DOJ, GAR also had to go through a transition with whatever it was that was happening at the national and local level. And it takes time and patience, but being a leader for this association since I moved home 2019, I was tapped on by our EO at the time to be a co-chair of a subcommittee of the YPN. And now I'm the chair of the YPN with 4 subcommittees this year.
You got to spend young people.
The Young Professionals Network. Yeah. So it's really exciting. And really, just like Chris and you and the rest of us on this island, I want our association to believe that we are not competitors, we are colleagues, because I have, just the other night, somebody said, oh, I know one of your competitors, so-and-so at this brokerage. I'm like, that's my kababayan. Like I've closed 3 deals with that person within the first 2 years of me being in real estate. Like that is not a competitor, that's a friend. And that's definitely somebody I would love to transact with again because it was so smooth every time. And I just want that idea that when when another realtor who's been in the business longer approaches you and says, hey, and you're friends or you're not friends, but you start talking dirt, like you listen, especially with the less experience and knowledge and information. And even with those with less experience and knowledge and information, I mean, everyone listens. I mean, we have to listen to each other so much, actively listening and actually taking information in and deciding what's best for you and your business. That's how we will grow and get stronger as an association, as if we truly believe without the other co-broke, there is no transaction, there's no close, and there's no economic support and ground and foundation for our island if we don't work together.
And, that's funny because, so in terms of your total number of realtors, there's 600. But,
I think we're at 575 now.
But I run a title company, and we don't see more than, half of them at the closing table ever, right? Because some of them never, and we will never see them ever. But the unfortunate part is it's because, you want some water?
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah.
I just need to clear out my chest. It's fine.
You're good.
It's done. Sorry.
No, we're good.
Nope. I'm fine.
It's really that phlegm just sitting in there.
We're almost done.
I know.
So,
to me, it's like the Academy FD thing. how they're like all brothers and sisters.
Santa Clara thing.
Yeah, it's a thing, and it'd be neat. It would be really neat if the realtors could head a little more in that direction. That we kind of take care of each other and try to.
But so to that point, right? A lot of the most successful transactions I've ever had have been as a result of sitting next to someone in a committee and developing a relationship and having that trust.
Right.
Yes.
Them understanding that, hey, this guy has me in committee and I can trust what he says and he's not BSing me about what the buyer is qualifying for because and so your word matters in that way. And those relationships matter in that way. So if you wonder why you're not transacting, it's because you don't know who you're working with.
Right.
And they don't know you.
And unfortunately, there are some realtors I would rather not do business with. And that's sad. And that really is sad.
Right.
I mean, I wish it was otherwise, but maybe someday it won't. But.
Yeah, and it doesn't help with Netflix shows Selling Sunset where there's drama and in the office competition of you stole my client. Like, oh my goodness, if you are stealing clients from each other in your brokerage, feel bad for the rest of us.
For our premium subscribers, Chris names names later.
Call me.
Off record.
I gave you my number. But yeah, I think one of the worst things I ever see is those stupid LA listing commercials, those brokers in New York and LA, and how they cut each other and kill each other. And it's just, man, that's not what it's about.
And they play their agents against each other. Like, who's going to get to the top? Who's going to get this listing in Brooklyn? Like, whoa.
No, I sold a condo to this great real estate. He's a great realtor out of Silicon Valley. He came here, he's like, man, you let a Silicon Valley agent in here, they're going to eat their young.
Yeah, they do.
It's like, look around. It's like, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But they're not going to last.
Well,
they'll make some money.
100%. So in my short time in real estate, like 20 years versus your 40 plus, right? I've seen a lot of people come and go, Chris. Like they burn bright and they flash out, and it's just because they don't maintain their relationships.
Yep.
And they burn the bridges.
Or knowledge. They don't keep trying to learn.
Yeah. So, all right. So when we interview, we always throw in like a crazy question. So I'm gonna drop this one on you, okay?
Yeah.
If you had to describe Guam's real estate industry in one word or phrase, what would it be or why, Chris?
Right now, slow.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Okay. All right, Dom.
This is really hard to get to, but I feel that there's not enough correct information being absorbed and shared. And so people are confused. There's not a lot of trust between the community and the Guam Association of Realtors. There's a lot of and it's all over the world too, but it's hard to see your island, your home with this amount of people and hear this many crazy, sad stories about how they got screwed by a realtor and the reputation that our association and our title has left on our community is saddening to me. And it is going to be our goal this year and for the years to come, as long as we're down to do these lives with love, to help our community and industry understand that.
That is my daughter's one-word answer.
It says phrase.
And she said one
phrase
word.
And
I
why.
love you. But that's the difference between I follow directions.
Well, sometimes, the ones who color outside the line are just as important as the ones who color inside, right?
Hey, this guy looked at it as real estate industry as a market. I looked at it as consumers and people, realtors. So I'm like, this is everybody. Yep. So I win.
You did.
Thank you.
You always do.
Mic drop.
You're your mother's daughter.
Right. So, I just really appreciate you guys coming on and just having a conversation.
Fun.
I mean,
it
it's
really
was
awesome,
fun,
right?
And just, like for me, like just, again, anytime I get to sit in the room with like, two cold hard killers, it's like, and I say that with respect and stuff because I see it, right? I see, when you see someone who sees it, it clicks, right?
Yeah.
I get it. And you've always been someone, and now I've learned about you. So congratulations to you on your legacy and your transition and your new leadership role. Not so new, right? 5 years and counting, but it seems like you're having great success. So thank you for all your support, and thanks for.
Still miss you in the market.
I'll be there.
man.
I'll be there.
No, we got
Come
him where
on,
we need him.
Retire,
Ryan
you're a
is staying
millionaire,
exactly
then
where
go
he is.
back and sell some dirt. Come on.
I want to be there in the streets with you.
Yeah,
That's the best
you
place to
are.
be. So right on. All right,
Thanks,
guys.
Ryan.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. That was really went better than I ever could have expected in a lot of ways, because every point that I wanted to hit came out. Maybe not in the depth that I wanted, but really just the core is there. Just in terms of learning about why relationships matter, how to navigate the real estate industry, how the real estate industry has been navigated through, the last like 40, 50 years, and where it's going. And one of the things we touched on is what we want for the real estate community. And, from the concept of data standardization, we want skilled professionals who are good at valuing property and disseminating information and interpreting information, or referring you to somebody who's skilled at it and getting you the answers that you need to protect you and help you make the largest investment in your life one of the most effective. And so that's what they're about, and that's what we're about. And thank you for tuning in. And these conversations are built around solving problems in the industry and where we're going and how we're going to get there. So if you like that, if you're interested in that, come talk to us, come see us, like, share, subscribe, save, check us out on our YouTube, check us out on our Instagram channels, our podcast channels, or check us out on our website, our WhatsApp. We're there. If you need us, Pinpoint Guam is there for you.